I have so many questions, but let me start off with the toy part, right? Because I know that the people from my office who would be watching this, they would really relate to it.
Mm,
Because in Pune, Toit is like one of my favorite places, right?
mm,
We used to have office parties there all the time. Um, and when I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you, right, I I thought of how kind of like the food goes well with the ambience and the way that the physical structure of the spaces
mm,
kind of planned out, right? Because
mm,
I really felt like your food and everything on the menu, it kind of went very well with, I would say, the rust, kind of like the rustic environment of uh, the place, right? So I'm curious, do you have a hand in that? Like, do you sit with uh, like the people who are maybe planning the place, or when let's say the Pune was the latest addition to the toy franchise, then like do you sit
mm,
and you think about how it looks and how it's going to tie in together with what you are going to present in the menu?
mm. With Toit, no, because simple answer is no. Why? Because Toit's been there for about a decade now and going strong. And I think when they took up that space initially, it was a very well designed space in Bangalore,
Mm-hmm.
and that space sort of worked out. So the spaces that came, Bombay and Pune, that came after it, uh, sort of merely reflected it and took some design cues from it. For example, I think if you noticed, it's the glass tiles, the Mangalore tiles with the glass inlay. That is a signature of Toit. And many people think, this is a fun fact, I think many people think it's Toit is supposed to be French for toit. Toit means roof.
Okay.
So
Uh-huh.
there's all these kind of sort of connections, but it's just Toit. It more so came more likely from, I think, when Austin Powers movie when he says "toit like a tiger" or something. Yeah, it's one of those sort of things that push them to get the name Toit. But yeah, excuse me. Um, the ambience towards Pune, we had realized that Bangalore was the space we moved into, and everything that came with the space, we had it, and we sort of worked with it. But with Bombay and Pune, we had the sort of freedom to put in our views, right? And the space design and oversight, I think, because Toy started 5 years before I even got there. That's taken care of with the directors, mostly Sibi and Arun and Mukesh. Those are the three directors.
Hmm.
They sort of ideate the space. When it comes to the kitchen, obviously I helped out a bit and the layout and all that. But since Toy got that space and it worked out so well in Bangalore, we designed similar spaces taking similar cues. Pune was designed a little bit like a beer garden of sorts, where you have this entire alfresco sort of dining space under a big banyan tree. Um, it's lucky. That's just lucky with the space. I don't know if when is the last time we were at Toy Pune, but I think we've added a few more seats behind that or adjacent that. I don't know if we've added 100 more
Me
seats. I
too.
think
Oh, 100 more seats. Oh, wow.
about maybe 80. I think 80. I roughly say 100, but that's I don't know if you've seen that big banyan tree area. It's added next
Yep,
to it.
yep.
Yeah. So
Oh,
that's like a
wait, did you break the wall? Because the banyan tree was
yes.
right next to the wall,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That
Oh,
wall came down. Yeah. Mm.
and also
So
I've
we
always wondered how come the parking lot is massive? It's huge.
So that property is a big size property, and I think what you see as a parking lot is also prime property. It's
Oh
just
yeah, definitely.
it's just the old space. I think it was called Soho or something. Was built here, and we had an
Mhm.
existing building here, but it's all owned by our landlord. That space is huge. It even goes behind Deutsche for a few meters. So it's one
Oh
big
wow.
corner spot around the highway, and I think the parking lot was just there. I didn't. I thought he maybe wanted to keep it a little secluded from the main road, which is why it's a little
Hmm.
inside. And the fact that it's inside,
Okay.
the rest of it becomes parking.
Hmm. That makes sense. So I'm curious, man. Like, so does that mean so Pune, Bangalore, and I mean not Pune and Bombay, but Bangalore at least. Culturally, it's very different, right? Like
Of
Karnataka
course.
and Maharashtra. So, like, how do you factor in that cultural difference when it comes to like the food, right? Because if you're keeping the architecture consistent, like, do you
We're
try
not
to make
keeping the
toys?
architecture consistent. We're trying to take design cues from one place that sort of, if you walk in there, it won't feel like Bangalore Toit. If you walk into Bombay Toit, it doesn't give
Uh-huh.
out the same. It doesn't. But if you're there for a beer or so, I think you might be able to say, "Oh, this feels a little bit like Toit." You want it to
Yeah.
feel like Toit. But then again, I think Bombay Toit's got that a little bit of a posh kick. Like, it feels like you're in Bombay, but you're in Toit. So
Yeah.
there's
I
that.
haven't been to Bombay toy.
But you'll see what I'm saying. I think we may be working on doing some small changes there as well. But Bombay
Mm-hmm.
Toit has this huge. There's a real like fishing boat in the smoking area,
Oh
and
wow.
we have a running joke that says, "I think it's the world's biggest ashtray because it's filled with sand and it's in the smoking area. It used to be the smoking area at least." Um, so yeah, design cues and the food. Now the food, we see ourselves as a very Bangalore-based pub that sort of is going places in the country.
Mhm.
So with the food offering earlier, the earlier Toit served classic pub grub. What you'd like with your beer. And then I think a couple of years down, when Permit Room was born, Permit Room food was there. So when we went into Bombay and Pune, when we forayed into those markets, we had Permit Room food doing great in Bangalore. So we thought, what what to take to Bombay and Pune. We're a Bangalore-based beer company, right? So it made the most sense to take what goes well with beer, which is your pub grub and your classic bar eats and fish and chips and yada yada, and take something that's Bangalore with us, or very quintessentially Bangalore, which is Permit Room. So the Bombay and Pune menus are like a hybrid of Toy pub grub and the really famous food from Permit Room. And it
Oh,
works
very interesting.
because it works because um, I don't think too many people in Bombay are drinking beer and eating chili chicken, right? But like Andhra style chili chicken, the spicy one, and
Yeah.
people are actually opening up to that idea that we're a Bangalore-based brewery and we're serving some amount of South Indian food along with classic pub grub. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So, as a chef, right? I've always wondered what's the biggest compliment, like, to you.
Hmm.
What's the one thing that when it happens, like, you get that satisfaction that okay, I'm this is good. Like, is it? I would imagine. So sometimes I cook, right? I'm like a YouTube certified chef,
Hmm.
but I sometimes cook, and when my mom or my sister like it,
Hmm.
that's like enough for me to think, okay, I'm doing something well. So what's something like that for you?
Mm, it's when people compliment your craft, man. It's when people compliment your food. Um, and more so family, like you said, because family is not afraid of saying, this doesn't taste good. Like I'll spend hours cooking something and my mom is like, because I mean, maybe maybe it's not up to her palate, or maybe she just doesn't like it. But family is the one that'll tell you, um, really give you the down low on your food. But yeah, like customer feedback is what we sort of cook for. I for one started cooking because, um, when I when I cook something nice and I see somebody's face light up, I don't even need to hear it. I can,
Yeah.
after a while you can tell, and that's very gratifying. And that's when I started cooking. And I think in Permit Room, cup maybe 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I was cooking in the kitchen. And earlier when I used to cook, I never used to go out into this thing. So somebody, I think it was like, um, I think it was like a, I think it was like a young child who wrote a note for me, and
Oh wow.
one of the service guys bought it in, uh, after service, post 10:30, 11, and there's a very handwritten note of sorts, and they said, "Thank you for doing this." It was a basic dish. It was nothing. I didn't do anything out of the world, but that note, I think I take a picture of it. I have it saved somewhere, but it was. I remember that note very, and that's when you feel good. When somebody's taking an effort to let you know that you've done good, it's good. It feels good. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can imagine how